Good afternoon, everyone, and or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California. My name is Angelica Cortez, and I use she, her pronouns, and I have the really great honor and privilege of moderating today's conversation with my super incredible colleagues up here, who you'll meet in just a minute. We, of course, wanted to start out with just giving a huge shout out and thank you to Sphinx for giving us this platform, for gathering us here. It's good to see so many familiar faces and to see so many of you all in the chat. So thanks again for joining us. To give you just a little bit of context in this conversation, we are each members of Sphinx Lead, which stands for Leaders in Excellence, Arts, and Diversity. The program is intended to support us in our executive leadership roles within the arts. So what you'll hear from each of us a little bit today is about our view of the field right now as it stands, what we see as most important, and of course, where we hope to see the field go in the future. So to that end, we thought we'd start out with giving you a little bit about each of our background. I'll pass it over to Terell to hear a little bit about what you're up to and where you're from.
Thanks, Angelica. My name is Terell Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chicago Philharmonic Society. I'm new to this role. I've been here about 7 months. I am just so glad to be here this afternoon to share this conversation with my great colleagues of Sphinx and tell you a little bit more about the Phil. So thanks. Happy to be here.
Akiya, you want to hop in next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Akiya Floyd. I'm the Associate Director of Development for the Atlanta Music Project. And how I came to this work, man, my whole life has been music. My mother is a violinist, and therefore I was forced at the age of 3 to start music. And since then, I've gotten a few degrees in music and arts administration, and have made my way into the fundraising field.
Thank you. I think it's my turn. I am Enrique Márquez, Director of Music at the Interlochen Center for the Arts. I'm an alum of Interlochen. I attended camp and academy a long time ago. I'm a violist. And I also come from a family of musicians and educators. So I was also brought to this field very early on. I work in the public sector, in the not-for-profit sector, and in the academic sector. So I bring kind of a perspective to this place, Interlochen, that hopefully will allow our students to thrive and be our future change makers in the field. So I'm grateful to be here, and thank you, Angelica, for moderating this panel.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for that. And just to say a little bit about me, I, as of this coming Monday, will be the Executive Director of the Suzuki Association of the Americas. I'm really honored to take on that position. And I am a recovering trumpet player, studied music in college, and like so many of you, just kind of got hooked by music and getting to meet incredible colleagues like the ones on this screen. So why don't we go ahead and just dive on in? Why don't you all talk a little bit to us about what's most important to you in your work? And the question that I'd like to really talk about and get to is, who are you responsible to? Who's the person, like what is the group of constituents and or people that you're most responsible to? And why don't we start out with you, Enrique?
Thank you, absolutely. So at Interlochen, every decision we make is centered on our students, on their well-being, their future, and just of programming, guests, hosts. We always try to have a very inclusive programming, honoring tradition and honoring the new works. We are also very much into providing students with a really broad way so that they can be successful in the future. We're trying to, for the next generation of creative change makers through it's called Interlochen 5 of our guidelines. So some of them are creative capacity, excellence, resilience, mindfulness, collaboration, global perspective. 20% of our students are international students. They come from all over the country as well. So it's a wonderful place to study. And I often think about this. I mean, of course, we have a board of directors, a president, a provost, and we have institutional goals. But the people that I believe I truly report to are my students. Often, if I find an initiative, I try to talk to them first about it, see what they think, because they're very incredibly bright young people who have a great great way to see the world in ways that perhaps we don't as adults. So I think that is at the forefront of what we do. We work a lot with the faculty. They're also very committed, outstanding musicians and educators who are here working every day, day in and day out, to support our students in their auditions for college, for youth orchestras, for festivals. So I really work, I think, for students, and overall, I would say work towards music, to further music, which I think is humanity's greatest achievement. So in a way, I think that's why we get to wake up every day, go to work, and enjoy what we do as leaders, as administrators, as co-workers, and as peers to the Sphinx community and the community at large.
Thanks for that, Enrique. And Akiya, I'd love to hear you talk about this, because I know that you're also working at a youth-driven institution, but on the fundraising side, right? So can you speak a little bit to that question as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing to me in this work is to make sure that we continue to raise the funds so that our programming staff can just focus on their job, which is to give our students the best music education they can get to help them progress through life and change their own lives, right? We firmly believe that the study of music builds characteristics that help them change their life. And so who am I most responsible to? That's such a tough question, right? I am definitely responsible to the kids, right? I in fundraising, people are so well-intentioned in their philanthropic interests, but so often people want direct access to kids. And like my main line is, I can't give you access to kids. And when you say it that way, people hear like, oh, I'm asking you something kind of weird, right? But I'm also responsible to the board and our CEO, right? I've got to raise money. I've got to build relationships. But I do try to think about community-centric fundraising. And so I'm also responsible to my community. When I am fundraising with donors, I'm very, very, very particular about language. And I kind of often correct people and tell them, I serve under-resourced kids, right? They're not disadvantaged kids, right? They're under-resourced. And I just am always thinking about how can I shape what people can offer us financially in such a way that they understand that they're helping us with a resource and not necessarily saving anybody.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit yesterday about how we work in communities of untapped potential, right? I think Kalita Jones used that phrase, and I know all of us just love that. So thanks for that framing, Akiya. And Terell, what do you think coming in from the orchestral music side?
Yeah, so what's most important to me is I think supporting musicians and supporting the arts community and arts ecosystem of Chicago. What's unique about the Chicago Philharmonic and the organization that I'm leading and serving is that we are a community of musicians that represent various ensembles throughout the city. And so I think that is something that's so unique and important to cultivate and foster, is like this community of musicians who are ambassadors of the Phil to other organizations. And something about the Phil that I think is so important in terms of who I kind of answer to and respond and who I'm serving is, we are unique in our governance structure, in which the musicians are actually the majority of the board. So, I'm not only am I serving, this community of artists, it's also entirely my duty to make sure I am, because they're also the ones I report to. So I think it's just so important to support this great community of musicians, to make sure that we're making an impact in the community that we're residing in, and pushing the field forward and really fostering their creativity.
Yeah, and what I love about this question and hearing you all talk is that what it really highlights is how many people we're really trying to report to, right? And ultimately, too, what we're talking about is what drives us, right? What gets us up every day. I know for me, it's really youth, it's young people, it's making sure that they have what they need to be successful, and spaces that they need to grow and give their gifts to the world. But a lot of times we're kind of interrupted and sidetracked in our work. in who we report to and what we're ultimately responsible for. So clearly, each of us is juggling a lot in that question in terms of who we're responsible to. I also would love to hear you all talk a little bit about so as you are, some of us are pretty new in our positions. I'll be starting a new position on Monday. Terell, you mentioned yours. I know Enrique, you're also new, and Akiya, a little bit of a different thing for you here, but talk a little bit about what you're looking for in your organizations. When you're applying to new organizations, are you looking for an organization like yours, Terell, where they're thinking a little bit differently about their governance model and about who's on the board, right? Akiya, you work for a culturally specific institution. So can we talk a little bit about that? And why don't we actually start with you, Terell?
Oh, thanks. I'll jump in on this one. So I was looking for an organization that wasn't super traditional, because I feel like when there's established templates, there's like really strict expectations entering a role. And I felt like this was like a new frontier, and I had an opportunity to lay this foundation as I went and keep what works and put down what didn't work. So that was something that was really appealing to me in this search for this new gig and finding the fill, was that the freedom to kind of forge our own path and do what makes the most sense for our organization in terms of its growth and in terms of the programming we want to do, in terms of how we want to interact with our community, in terms of our community engagement programs. So I think that was something that was really appealing to me, was finding a non-traditional structure for an organization to support. So,
yeah, and for me, it's not necessarily tradition versus not tradition. I have to be able to sell this to donors, right? As a fundraiser. In the end, this is somewhat of a sales job. I'm selling based on emotion, right? But it's a sales job. And so I'm looking for an institution that's going to appeal to people, right? I attend events all the time. I was at one last night. I'm going to a Hawks game tonight with a donor. And I attend like the orchestra. I go to the museum. Like, I'm listening to what people are saying at these events, right? I'm trying to engage people right where they are, right? And so if I'm in an institution where I'm going, like I was recently at a concert where I left an intermission because I was bored, and the people in the audience also left with me, unfortunately. And they were saying, like, this older gentleman had to be over 70. Like, he was talking to his wife, not quietly, because volume is a thing. And he was like, this is the most boring thing ever. I'm just like, see, this is why I vet institutions. I want to know that you're thinking about your audience, right? I want to know how committed you are to your mission, because I have to, as a fundraiser, I have to really believe in the mission, right? And I mean, it's easy at AMP. I definitely believe in the work we do. The evidence is in the kids and the 100% high school graduation rate, right? So that makes it easy. But I'm looking for the institutions that are thinking forward, right? What millennials want. I've also been in other concerts where people leave after 30 minutes because after a pandemic, they don't have it in them to sit forever. And so I'm just looking for the institutions who are ready to move forward in a different way. But I'm also looking at ones who, if you have a DEI statement, I want to know that you're actually doing it. I'm going to ask you. I'm, an outgoing, outspoken person. So I'm going to ask you what you're doing. And if I come in as a BIPOC person, I want to know what support is there for me, from the top down. And so those are the kind of things I look for.
Great. If I may, working at Interlochen is very special. We have many divisions. We have music, and we have classical music, singer-songwriter, popular music, and engineering and production. We have visual arts, theater, creative writing, film. So it's really a wealth of options that our students have to work with other students in other disciplines, or work within music with folks that perhaps work on a different kind of craft. I like to quote Gustav Mahler on tradition. I think this is meaningful to me. He said, "Tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire." In a way, we're keeping Ellington alive to the fire, Nina Simone, traditional music, folk music. That's all, I think, tradition. So I love that. I mean, eventually we can be in a world where Tradition, I think, is more of a verb than a noun. It's something that we do every day. At Interlochen, we perform music by Valerie Coleman and by Beethoven and by Wagner. So we're really just giving our students a wealth of options so that they can embrace music and really be in touch with the contemporary composers that are alive, that look like them, that sound like them, that are folks that are committed to music, and that they just see music as a one entity that is massive, all encompassing and welcoming. I think we're a forward-looking institution. We take our job very seriously because we're working with young musicians. So we want to really prepare them for a field that is full of possibilities, but also full of challenges, hurdles, and that is very competitive. That being said, I think students should be able to, when they come out of Interlochen, to define and redefine success. And I think ultimately they should really think about what makes them happy, what makes them thrive, what makes them wake up every day and go to rehearsal, go to the symphony. Something else that we think a lot about is how they can impact the world of music or the arts or the world at large. So many of them will become musicians. Many of them will found music groups. They become arts leaders like us, funders, or wonderful devoted audience members. So we want to keep them keep in mind that they can always redefine what they're doing, change path, come back to a path that they left years ago, but they should just find meaning in what they do every day.
I completely agree with you, Enrique. I feel like what I'm looking for first and foremost is have we predetermined what success looks like for our young people in our educational institutions? Like, is that only one thing? Do we have like this small box of success for youth, or are we facilitators? Are we looking to make sure that they can build the futures that they want for themselves?
Angelica, that's a really good point, right? Because I was just listening to a session when they were talking about, colleges still tend to push the same things for performance majors. You're going to be in an orchestra, you're going to start a chamber group, et cetera. And
Yep.
I think one thing the pandemic really made a reality for many musicians is that they have got to take their own brand into their own hands and, open up possibilities for themselves. They need to be on social media, at least sharing, this is what we do, right? And it can help any institution they're a part of. But I think moving forward, it's too narrow of a scope to say solely, I'm just an orchestral musician. No, you're a whole brand, right? And if you want to have a career and really think outside of just I'm a musician in an orchestra, because and when this pandemic hit, some orchestras furloughed their people. Broadway said, "Oh yeah, okay," as we all know. And so I think educational institutions have to help their students think outside the box. And if they do go play in an orchestra, which there's nothing wrong with that, they also need to be thinking, how else can I build an audience for this orchestra by being a brand online? There's just has to be more this day and age.
Akiya, yes, I absolutely agree. Yes, because what I've found is, having conversations with colleagues, and yesterday when we had our retreat for leaders, we talked about educational institutions and the curriculum that these students have, and how there's a focus on certain type of music and certain things that people think are necessary for their education. That's what's usually mentioned often. It's like we have to do this because this is what's going to prepare them for the future, for the job we'll get after this. But what's so fascinating is that once they're out of school, you realize I need to actually play a lot of things. I might end up playing with Beyonce. I think it's really interesting that this topic that you're bringing up, and that for my organization, we often collaborate with the ballet. So there's often lots of ballet music. We're the Ravinia Festival Orchestra as well. So we're often playing with Pops concerts. We did a Weird Al concert. We have Carrie Underwood, Joshua Bell. So there's a wide range. So these musicians have to be very versatile. So I think educational institutions need to realize that there's a lot of importance in balancing out their experience, not only with things that they would say are the important traditional curriculum and tools, but also acknowledging that it's 2022, and they also have to be prepared to be entrepreneurs, have to be prepared to play multiple genres and styles of music.
Yeah, 100%. When I was at the LA Phil, the musicians there were playing anything from Common and John Legend to Natalia Lafourcade and, so the cumbia bands that I grew up listening to. That is a requirement at this point. So, okay, before we get too far down the line with this particular conversation, I'm going to move us along to the next question. And Akiya, you touched a little bit on this, so I'm going to ask you to jump in first. But each of us identifies as leaders of color, right? And as we all have experienced, it's sort of also I'll start by saying this. Each of us prioritizes equity practice in our lives day in and day out because it's our lived experience, right? But often we are in charge and looked to for answers in relation to equity, diversity, and inclusion for our institutions. What do you think is most important for folks listening right now to know in relation to equity, inclusion practices, specifically for each of us in each of our roles?
Fundraising, equity and inclusion, diversity. Okay. Well, first of all, just entering an institution. I mean, I was asked to give a reference for a friend who entered an orchestra. She's a Black woman in marketing. And they asked me, someone who's not in their institution, how they can, basically they asked about belonging, And I'm saying to myself, I don't have an answer for your institution. Like, have you thought about it? Please don't put that burden on me. And I think that's one of the bigger kind of things I think institutions need to think about. You cannot put the burden of all of this on BIPOC people. We don't have all the answers. There are all these systems in place that you can examine for your own institution. And it needs to start from the top down. I mean, to me, if it's not happening at the board level, it's not happening, no matter what you do within the rest of the nonprofit institution. But and fundraising, more specifically, I think there's been a long focus on specific donors, right? With lots of money. Being in Atlanta, I am privileged to be around lots of different types of people with lots of money. And I have to make sure that I am creating a culture of giving that does not exclude people, right, who we don't traditionally think have funds. I think I have to be sure that I'm going to different spaces, right? I'm not just going to the ballet and the museum. I'm going elsewhere, right? I'm going to maybe a networking event at a local restaurant, right? I'm not excluding people. I'm making everyone responsible for the community, and fundraising for our organization includes everyone, right? And then again, like I said, just being very intentional about language and kind of the rules I live by concerning how I raise funds.
Yeah, if I may, I think I'm about this quite a bit. I live in northern Michigan, so it's not Atlanta. It's a little bit different population. But what I'm trying to focus in is just a lot of, if I go back to the topic perhaps, to how can we best serve our students in this regard. So we offer classes on how to create a podcast. We have leadership classes, business of music classes. We invite folks like Davon Tynes, outstanding baritone and an Interlochen alum, so that students get used to seeing people of color that are very successful, very creative, very innovative, that are really leading the field in ways that only they can experience. Davon went to Harvard and Juilliard, for example. He's an outstanding, brilliant, very clever person. So that's how I'm trying to approach this. As I mentioned, programming also, making sure that every ensemble plays music from BIPOC composers. And that we are really also offering our students the chance to, we offer a great menu. Many of our students play in the orchestra and the jazz orchestra. Many of them play musicals, ballets, and they play Beethoven 5. So that's how, I'm trying to work with my colleagues here to really diversify the academic curricular work that we're doing, so that our students from any background, any country, any state of the country, state of the U.S. can just feel part of the field, and that hopefully, I mean, I think the world that they are going to encounter is very different from ours. Orchestras are programming new music and music by composers now like never before. So they're very lucky that they'll get to perform so many works that people for decades never performed, or they performed it on the Dia de los Muertos concert or the Black History Month concert. Now it's happening all over the place, and it's happening all the time. So I think that's how I'm trying to work in terms of DEI on a cultural, programmatic, academic way.
I think in terms of this work, there is a unique type of pressure on individuals like us, and especially having the answers to a lot of these questions. What I can do is I can really give you my lived experience. I can share, my experience and playing the clarinet and being the only Black kid in orchestra for most of my life. So I could do that, and I can say what that is like. And I think there's a lot of tools that we can share, but ultimately I think the weight and the pressure I want people to understand, my colleagues to understand when supporting this work, is that sharing these stories. A year ago, I shared a story at a town hall, and I told people something I didn't bring up often because I kind of felt like I don't know if this is something I wanted to share. And that it was not a fault of mine, but I told them about an incident when I was young, and I was in high school or college. I went to the movie theater and had a terrible experience with the police. And I told that story because I wanted to show context. Like, this is what your colleagues are going through. This is what that quiet, I guess, undercurrent of their experience. Like, you see them day to day, but these are the things they carry with them. And I think what's important is that after sharing that, the weight, I think, should kind of be taken off to where this is our experience, and now I'm looking for help. We're looking for help in this struggle in terms of how we program, how we represent the organization. I think it's important that when people go into a space, they should. This is a tough one. When people go into a space, I want them to be able to point at anyone in that space, but that person could be the CEO. And I shouldn't assume who the CEO is, because that's something that's so unique, I think, in our field, is that typically someone might assume that if there's a person that looks like us, they're probably not in the right position to get things done. So I want people to change things to where the pressure isn't on us, the weight isn't on us to correct these things, but we're only there to help identify the issues because it's our lived experience, and then for them to take those tools to make the change and to help us make the change, but not to rely on us to be the individuals exclusively to make the change.
I really wish there was the ability to do like clapping hands, because I had multiple times wanted to clap hands here.
I'm just going to do it. There
we go.
We do some steps too.
There we go.
I'm the same about you three.
No, because what I love about each of your answers, right, is that it highlights how this is just lived practice. This is in everything that I'm doing, I'm searching for opportunities to make me, both as an individual and my organization, a little bit better in relation to its equity practice. There's not an endpoint. There's not going to be a day that I'm like, cool, we fixed it, we've solved it, let's move on. Like, it is forever and ever, and it is constant undoing and growing and learning. And what I also want to say that's, I think, important for us to hear is that just because we're folks of color does not mean that we are done with our own equity practice and understanding. There is work that each of us is doing on an individual basis to make sure that we are growing, changing, understanding, undoing, unlearning, right? So I just thank you all for all of that insight. And I'll go ahead and move us on to the next question. And what needs to change in our field right now? And is there something that you're doing right now that is helping to address that?
Oh, I'll take this one. So what's been really important to me is programming. And we have a composers in residence program, and it's for BIPOC composers. And it's something I think is so important in the work we're doing, is that we're recognizing new talent or the talent that's always been here that just hasn't had a platform. So we have three black and brown composers who are presenting amazing works once a year for the next 3 years. And what's crucial is that we're putting them on the same stage. My next concert, we have one of our composers in residence, Ronaldo Moya, on a concert with a Pulitzer Prize and Grammy winner. Because to me, they're right next to each other. One just hasn't had the opportunity yet to have that huge world stage. But I think it's so crucial in our work that we are uplifting these terrific musicians, these terrific composers whose works for a long time hasn't been heard, and also carrying it out. That's why this program is a 3-year program at minimum, because I know right now we are programming lots of diverse work and it's amazing, but I'm really in it for like the long marathon. So programming has been so important to me, as well as the musicians on stage who are playing those pieces and the conductor who's conducting the pieces. So it's a long haul. We've set the foundation now. We just have to carry this through for the years to come. So that's what I think is so essential.
I'll add to that because you kind of hit on my answer, which is a fun, controversial answer, but the canon needs to change. It's very Eurocentric. There's so much music by American composers all over the Americas, all right, to where we could define a new canon. When we are doing auditions, we're not necessarily looking for anything but great rhythm, sound, etc. And you can do that with any piece. And so there's really no reason that we can't change the canon except tradition, right? Not really. And it probably could be somewhat interesting and fun to change the canon and make room for all these new pieces that are occurring, but also all the old ones that are not celebrated. There are so many. I know the organization I work for, Atlanta Music Project, we do a Music of the African Diaspora Festival. Our next one is in March. And, there are so many works out there that people don't know exist, that have existed for a long time. If we can find works and also commission works for hundreds of kids, everyone else can figure it out too. So I think the canon needs to change. And also another big one, the nonprofit fundraising model. I think it also needs to change. Just throwing out, you might as well just go with the heavy hitters. You're going to ask this question, right? We rely way too much on just the wealthy donors, and we do not focus on community support as a whole, right? If you think your organization is benefiting the community, then let's make the whole community responsible for it financially, right? And then you as CEO, most CEOs in the arts, I think, aren't doing enough advocacy at the systems level. And so let's change the fundraising model, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's great. I agree. If I may, I also wish that eventually we can go from diversity to plurality and from inclusion to belonging, because those words are used so much, but I'm not sure if they're really accurate anymore. Or the word outreach concert, I think that's the worst possible name for a concert, because meaning that you're out of there, you're not in, you're a different community. So I think that's a matter of language, but words do matter, as we know, and they have a powerful effect on what we do. I agree with Terell about programming. I went to the New York Philharmonic a few weeks ago at Carnegie Hall, and they had a great concert. I thought a great program. It was a piece by Hale Stork, a piece by John Adams, and then a piece by Sibelius with a female conductor. So that should be the norm. That should be what's a regular concert at Carnegie, at the park, anywhere. So I think we're getting there. I think this is a period of transition, and transitions are often complicated and a little bit painful. But I think this country is really talking about that in a way that is significant. Sphinx, I think, has done a great work, further the discussion and getting the discussion to be a discussion on actual funding. As we know, budgets do matter, and whatever you budget, that's what you care about. That's where through the eye, all these things that really reflects. If it's a budget item with 5, 6, 7 figures, you really care about it. Otherwise, we're just talking about it, which is also fine. But I think we need to get the generations that are younger to just get used to it, so that they demand concerts like that.
Yeah, well, and I think that so much of what we're talking about here too goes back to that fundamental question, right? Of like, who is this art for? Is it for our funders? Is it for the musicians on the stage? Is it for audience members? Do any of you want to speak a little bit to that? Like, what are some of the other tensions that kind of come up? Because this is a big one. Like, who are we here for? What do our organizations exist to do?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is it's a crazy time. Things are crazy, and our time is so precious and scarce. And so I don't know if it's controversial, but I do think, like, when we think who is this for, I mean, when people right now leave their homes, show their vaccine cards, go through so much, get a babysitter to go to a performance. I mean, I definitely want to see some Black and brown people on stage while going through all that. So I think it is important that we, in the entire process, do think about the audience experience, even if it's not, I don't know if it's artistically aligned with the goals, if we want to play canon pieces, but we have to think about, first of all, what city are we in? Second of all, this person's gonna risk their life right now, with COVID. We're all being as safe as we can, but it's still a small risk to leave the house. So I think it is really important to think about the people who are sitting in the audience, and the impact that what's being programmed has on them.
Yeah, thank you. I think also about, I think music education it's a human right. I mean, we all should have access to it, no matter where you live, and access to all kinds of music, to bluegrass, to folk, to jazz, to classical. It's not just that we're focusing on classical, which is what I think that four of us mostly do. But I think access is very key. I mean, people don't have access to it. Or classical music is expensive. You buy instruments, you play a string, you have to buy several instruments just to grow. So I think it's a fundamental human right. And I think we're getting there. I mean, I was working in Mexico in the law of culture, and that was part of the discussion that, kids should have access to it no matter where they are. And they should be part of the education curriculum worldwide. I mean, I think some countries are doing a great job. In the US, I mean, Akiya knows better. We fundraise a lot to give our kids access. But I mean, so that's a wonderful thing. But I think, yeah, that's who is it belong to? It belongs to everybody. I think it's a very human. I think it's the most human of the arts. I mean, it also is a very plural art. I mean, orchestra, you have woodwinds, brass, strings. You can be a very tall person, not very tall, very strong, not very strong, and you belong. You can do it. And as far as paradigms, I think the orchestra or the ensemble, the wind symphony, the choir, is a wonderful paradigm because we're all different, but we all succeed together. It's not a zero-sum game, which I think the current world acts like that. You win, I lose. There is no other way around in business, in even academia. So I think with music, it's what's going to drive humanity to a better path. Maybe that's too romantic, but I truly believe that there is nothing like it. And we can understand music from other parts of the world without knowing the lyrics or even the music. We get it. It's so intrinsic to our existence.
I mean, I think for me this has two answers, right? The arts for art's sake answer and more. But I think we train musicians to care about art for musicians, right? We train to play better for ourselves. There's very little conversation about this piece being played for others, right? It's very little conversation when you're studying music around that. It's when you get into an institution that becomes a conversation, right? But then also there is a huge assumption I find a lot of the times that only white people appreciate classical music, right? And it's not happening in anyone else's household, right? I mean, I know growing up, I heard plenty of classical music alongside everything else. So there's a huge assumption in these conversations that we need to bring classical music to every other culture, right? And it's like, no, I think a lot of BIPOC cultures just live in a duality, right? Where we can appreciate various types of music, right? And so I think our institutions, I'll say in Atlanta, if I go to a concert and there aren't at least a few Black people on the stage, I'm probably not going to go back because that makes no sense, right? Atlanta is not majority white. So anything I go to, that just makes no freaking sense, right? It doesn't have to be just Black people. I'm looking for everybody, right? Atlanta has a huge population of Latino people, of people of Asian descent. I'm looking for everybody, right? So if I don't see it, I may not go back because that's my values, right? But that's not just Atlanta, right? There are many cities in the US that have huge populations of BIPOC people and they're not represented, you know? And so I am definitely looking for that when it comes to, you know, providing arts. And I just think at this point, we can call a spade. There are many institutions that just aren't trying to be different at this point. And I don't know what that means for their future. I think millennials definitely expect diversity in things they go to, like inherently. It just feels wrong to them. And I'm a millennial, so I should say it feels wrong. I don't think they always look for it. I think Gen Z has no chill. So Gen Z is like, yeah, this isn't diverse. And they'll tell you on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I love it about Gen Z. But yeah, I just think we're beyond the point where like digging your heels in about everything remaining one way is a surefire way for your organization to die.
Terell, I saw you for a sec, so I was just trying to give you some space to chat, but I can move.
Oh no, Akiya, she had a mic drop right there, so I had to give it this burst. I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, completely agreed. Yeah, we'll go ahead and leave that on Akiya's note then. We wanted to talk a little bit too, just to give everyone a little taste of what are you doing to stay healthy? I mean, everyone just heard us talk about all the weights and different, things that we're trying to juggle right now in each of our jobs and in our work. What are some of the things that y'all are doing to stay healthy, to keep mindfulness, to keep sane? As we're navigating a pandemic, as we're navigating everyone looking at us for DEI answers, as we're navigating, also just enjoying our work, right?
Let's see. After this, it snowed all day today, so I'm probably gonna take the kids sledding. We're Florida people, so you can see it's all white behind me. So we're gonna get the sleds out and bundle up and go sledding because it's great. So we're gonna enjoy our time together. I mean, I'm so passionate about this job. I feel like this has been an amazing opportunity, but there's times I need to just get on my sweats, put on my hat, and just have fun with the kids. So I kind of usually unplug that way. I think reconnect with my community and my family. Eat some good food. Friday is sushi night. Have a date night. If you can't get a babysitter, and I know our jobs are tough, and we need to unwind. Every Friday night for the last 3 years, it has been sushi date night. So and we pop a bottle of champagne and we celebrate the week, and that has been my wife and our tradition for the last 3 years. So that's how I stay in this and keep pushing forward. It's just also taking time to reconnect and spend time with people.
Well, and I think it's really important that we talk about this, right? Because something that we forget to talk about in relation to equity work is like relaxing time. We work I think those of us who are drawn to nonprofit work are drawn to like the stress and anxiety and the like kind of need to get things done. And all of us are in leadership positions within our organizations. Clearly, we want to get stuff done. We're here to change the world. And a huge part of that is making sure we take care of ourselves and making sure that we create space to be healthy. It's a huge part of this work. Akiya, Enrique, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I like to, I'm listening to new music that I don't know, other genres that I'm not familiar with. I love swimming. I'm back doing that, which is great. Feels so good to go to the pool in the morning. I like to read quite a bit. And just hang out with friends when I have a chance, have dinner with them or have a meal. That's very important to unwind, to see a movie you like or a show. I like series a lot, so I watch those to unwind in the evening. So yeah, I think it's a very important, like Terell said, to find a balance to celebrate the week and celebrate that I think we do meaningful work. We're very lucky people. We do what we love, even if it's challenging, long hours, no weekends, evenings. I think we're doing what we love to do. So anyway, I'm happy that I'm doing this work. I'm grateful, But yeah, it's very important to also have time to do other things, not think about the job or not thinking about music or culture.
Yeah, I will say that I love working here, and so I like seeing the kids is kind of cathartic, right? Just I love the young kids, the prep choir. They're the greatest. Seeing them sing, is a good time for me. But when I'm not doing work because I'm so much meeting people, I tend to like go inward instead. I'm a big nerd, so I watch a lot of Star Trek and I read a lot, and or I'll go hang out with my nieces and nephews here in Atlanta because they're all grand and they make life better. So one of those things, or I'll go sit alone in a movie because that is always just a vibe.
Thanks for that, y'all. And
Angelica, what did you do?
thanks for that. I really wish you hadn't asked me because I was just thinking, shoot, I don't even have an answer to this question.
How's your bread baking?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I love baking bread. Thank you for answering for me, Terell. Thank you for having me back on that one. I love baking bread. I love running actually as well. Yoga, seeing my family too is super important to me. And yeah, I think for me, legitimately the hardest thing is turning off communication, right? Like not checking email for me is kind of, I've noticed if I don't check email for like a week, I feel like a totally different person. And so making sure that I find moments to do that has I think really been productive for me.
I'm team no notifications. I know it's unpopular, but I'm team no notifications. It stresses you out when you get a notification at midnight.
we have to. We're in this for the long haul, so we have to protect ourselves and keep ourselves.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so before we go into questions from the audience, and we've had several come in, please continue to keep them coming in. But just one last thing for me, and that's if there's one thing you want folks to take away from this conversation, whether that's an action item or just a thought for them to engage with, what would it be?
I would just say support your local art organizations, be open to new stuff, new composers, new music, turn off the preconceived notions of this is what I like, I don't like this stuff, and just be open to be surprised and enchanted by other stuff that you don't even know, that you don't know.
I love that, enchanted. I'm gonna use that, surprised and enchanted. I love that terminology. But yeah, just I encourage people to not think about what you're losing and think more what opportunities are coming your way by diversifying and thinking outside of the box, bringing you into a future where you got the metaverse. And we got to compete with everybody virtual, and no one wanting to be in person. So just think about opportunities that are coming your way.
I would say find ways to continue to collaborate with other organizations outside of your discipline. So if it's dance or visual arts or whatever type of media it is, I think it's important to get other perspectives. Because sometimes if you have tunnel vision with yours, there are other ways to enhance the art and also to enhance the EDI efforts. If we learn about what other orgs are doing, I think also it's important that if as you're pushing through for EDI and all these efforts we're trying to achieve, Black and Brown, BIPOC, also abilities are so important. I think people forget about an individual's abilities and how EDI is wrapped into that as well. One of the important things I just want to say is I recently we did a gig and the venue didn't have a wheelchair, any type of wheelchair accessibility, and it's amazing that in this day and age those things aren't considered. So I think collaboration, considering people's abilities in EDI, and just staying innovative in the work.
And I'll just end with, I hope that folks are seeing, I mean, we're sort of the emerging leaders session here. So we're being looked at as the newest folks in terms of leadership in the field. And I hope that folks can get a sense of how incredible this group of people is. I think someone said this earlier, but a lot of times we're talking about, preparing folks of color for leadership positions. There are people who are already prepared. none of us got here by accident. Each of us has done a ton of hard work, and we are often more and over researched for the meetings that we walk into. So I hope that folks are getting a sense of that. I certainly have, just by listening to you all talk today. So thank you all. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into some of these questions. Enrique, I'm going to go ahead and pass this one over to you. So someone's asking a little bit about how technology has been implemented, so obviously specifically at Interlochen, and also can you speak a little bit about how students are engaging with technology?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, we all are, in a way, over tech here. I mean, we're connected all the time. So actually what we're trying to do is to get students off technology for a little bit of a time, because I think it's overwhelming for them to have so much access all the time to pretty much anything they need. We have the Berlin Philharmonic, to the concert hall. We have all kinds of access so that they can really see anything they want. The Met Opera we also have for them. Often have, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and so on. So what we're trying to work with them is how they can communicate what they want to communicate to technology, being an Instagram post, how to record a podcast, how to do innovative video works with their friends. But I think the bottom line is that they need to be able to communicate something. So what we're often trying to work with them is what do you want to say to the audience, to your peers, to others, that is meaningful to you. So it's probably meaningful to others through technology. But I think often, our students at the academy are 14 to 18. So they were born with iPhones. They were born with all this stuff that I wasn't. So they're really, I think they're called native users, something like that. So that to them, that is the world they know. So often they are more fluent than we are in tech-wise, and they know about other apps or programs that we don't know about. But I think the question we're now confronting is it good to be always connected? We are hyper-connected, but we're also a very lonely society. People are, so it's tough. How can we use technology, in this case, to the arts, to solve these problems? And often, I think what I hear now is that music therapy is taking a lead on this to help people join a choir, meet to listen to music, to build community that is meaningful to them. I think we are facing that challenge right now, that we are over-connected, hyper-connected, but we're often in a way on our own a bit more. I mean, we can buy anything from our computer now. We used to need to go to the shop to look for a speaker, to look for anything. So now I think that is kind of it's a great benefit, but also it's a bit detrimental to society.
Yeah, and definitely a theme for today, right? For each of us as leaders is clearly that we are looking to embrace that. We are looking to embrace. And also, the other thing about youth is young folks use technology way better than we do most of the time. So, especially in educational organizations, I just think we need to put young folks in more positions of power more often. And, yeah, if you've ever had a student open up Instagram and show you something, for me, I learned something new every single time. So before I go too far down that rabbit hole, I'm going to ask Akiya this question. What are your qualitative metrics for success with youth? And how do you find donors that are in support of those metrics for success? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. I think our program staff defines a lot of what success means for our kids. We have had studies done, though, and we're in the midst of a study as well with the University of Kansas, kind of studying the effectiveness of our programs and what we assert the outcomes are, right? I think that's super important. You assert that, intense study of music builds certain characteristics. Well, let's test that, right? And so we do have numbers that I can tell our donors, which I do, because some of them, more the techie donors, the lawyers, want to know the metrics. And so I tell them we have 100% high school graduation rate. Our kids are more engaged as the year goes, the study says, higher GPAs, et cetera. So I have the metrics, right? I think it might benefit more institutions to kind of examine the metrics themselves, get that data. It would be helpful, I think, to the field as a whole. And then also outside of performance, I appeal to to what people want to feel. Basically, like I feel out for that from that donor what they're looking for, and then I just match it that way. I don't kind of charge our program staff or our kids to do that for them. You know, they have their indicators of success. We have kids go to Allstate. That's an indicator of success for a lot of people. So we have the quantitative and the qualitative data. And the qualitative data is about engagement. Our kids are more engaged as the year goes, as opposed to the kids who aren't. Like I said, we have studies, so I can, say these things. But I find the donors who care about metrics want the quantitative metrics, and the rest of them don't care about metrics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And also, I feel like you're like every program director's dream right now in terms of my God. Thanks. Yeah. So this next question, I'm going to pass over to you, Terell. And it's you spoke a little bit about the importance of programming. The question is, what have you noticed about audience reaction and/or non-reaction to the shifts that you're making in programming?
I've noticed that the reaction has been pretty tremendous. My very first concert with the Phil was in June, and it was titled Redemption. And this performance was a collaboration with Adrian Dunn. He's a singer, songwriter, and has a choir. And we work with his choir. And the concert was, each movement, each piece was dedicated to someone who lost their lives to police brutality. And it was an incredibly powerful message. So we have, I don't know, this was actually our first concert back too, not on Zoom, back live in person. And so not only was it a incredibly powerful experience because of the programming, but just the message we shared to our audiences, and having like the majority of this ensemble being Black and brown individuals from Chicago, but from a composer from Chicago. It was received so well. I mean, it was an amazing performance. We ended up being able to stream this live to over 115 cities in 9 different countries, and the reception was amazing. Not only was that a performance where we were able to reach more people, to expand to other audiences, but to highlight this amazing composer who's doing great work, not only as a musician, but as an activist. And immediately after that, my second concert was with the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance. And this was an entire program dedicated to Puerto Rican music. And I think it is tremendous. And our audiences have been really receptive to the Composer in Residence program and the music that these young composers are programming. And when we talked about innovation, I think they've been so excited because not only did our Composer in Residence program an amazing piece that was so idiomatic to the violin, that had it was just like shredding on violin for 15 minutes. And the next thing this individual is doing is he's writing a score, which just premiered at Sundance, for the new movie Hung for Jesus, Save Your Soul. So this individual is showing his huge range, and that there's so much that you can do, and you can be so broad. So I found that the reviews that came in were so just warm and receptive to the young composers. The community has been really receptive to, because that program maybe 2 years ago would be very provocative, having a program that's highlighting something that's so it's a dark side of our country, and at times we want to kind of sweep under the rug. So I would just say, to make it short, that I have been really pleased to see how people have been committed to supporting this type of artistry.
Right. Thanks for that, Terell. And I can see that we are just about out of time. So I just want to add to that thought too. I mean, folks vote with their feet, right? And in our education institutions too, it's the same thing, right? Who's showing up to your programming? Why are they showing up? Kids vote with their feet, audiences vote with their feet. And I'm not surprised to hear that you had a really warm and receptive welcome to what you're doing over there, Terell. So on that note, I want to thank my incredible colleagues. I want to send a huge, huge thank you to Sphinx again. And thank you all for listening to us. We're really, really honored to be here with you, and I'm sure that we will catch you more throughout the rest of the weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.